So 9.1 is split up into two sections. We have circles and parabolas. Today we're going to focus on circles. Tomorrow we'll look at parabolas. So let's see. A circle is a set of all points x comma y in a plane that are equidistant from a fixed point hk called the center of the circle. So hk is our center. Our circle formula is this thing down here where we have h and k. So just notice how we have x minus h. So whatever it is in this parenthesis, we're going to switch the sign of h and switch the sign of k when we put it into like our center of the circle. So if we put it in parentheses, this becomes positive h and positive k. And then it's equal to our r squared, and r is the radius. So whatever this number is here equal to, we would just take the square root, and that's the length of our radius, which would be this length here. So let's look at example 1. The point 1, 4 is on a circle whose center is at -2, -3, as shown in figure 9.4. Write the standard form of the equation of the circle. So we're going to use our equation up here and plug in what we have. So x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So it gives us our center. So this is our h, this is our k. We can plug them in. So this is going to be x. What comes next? It would be x plus 2, because it's minus a -2, which turns into a plus. So just keep that in mind. Our h was -2, minus a negative number, two negatives make positive. And then plus y, what comes next? Plus 3. That's equal to r squared. Do we know what our radius is? Nope, so we got to figure it out. How do you think we can find out what our radius is? The distance formula, which is pretty much what the formula of a circle is, but do we know what x and y are? Do we have anything we could plug in for x and y? Plug in 1, 4. So we're going to plug in 1 for x and 4 for y. And that way we can just solve for r. So we have 1 plus 2 squared plus 4 plus 3 squared is equal to r squared. 1 plus 2 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 2 is, squared, 7 squared is 49. So 9 plus 49 is 58. That's equal to r squared. So we could take the square root to find our radius. So our r is equal to square root 58. But in our equation here, it is equal to r squared. So we just want to take r squared and plug that in. So what's our r squared? 58, just 58. So our radius is square root 58, but our radius squared is just 58. So we're just going to take 58 and plug it into r squared. So we have x plus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared is equal to 58. And this is our equation of the circle. Example 2. So sketch the circle given by the equation and identify its center and radius. So it actually already sketched it for us on the side there, but we want to put this equation into our standard circle equation form. So that would be x, okay, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So we need our equation to look like this. So what we need to do is complete the square. All right, so we need to complete the square for x and for y in order to get it to be this binomial squared. So to complete the square, we group our x's together, and then we're going to have to complete the square for our y's too to get it to look like this. So we want to group our y's together because we're going to have to complete that square also. And then any constant numbers we have, we just want to move it to the other side of our equation to just get it out of the way. So I'm going to move that plus 6 to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 6. Just so I have all of my terms with variables on one side and all my constants on the other. So first thing I want to do is complete the square with the x's. So I have x squared minus 6x and then I want to put some number here that makes this a perfect square binomial. So if you guys remember from Algebra 2, that number that we put there is b over 2 squared. And b is always our middle number there. So here we're inserting negative 6 over 2, and it's going to be squared. So what's negative 6 divided by 2? Negative 3. So we always take the x that's squared, and then we take whatever this number is squared, and we put it into our parentheses down here. So this would be x minus 3. Now in this step here, we just added this number into our equation. It wasn't here. We just pulled it out of nowhere to put it in here so we would have a nice perfect square binomial. So since we added 9 to this equation, because negative 3 squared is 9, we added 9 here. We also have to add 9 to the right side of our equation to keep it balanced. So since I added 9 here, I want to add 9 to the right side of my equation also. Everybody with me so far? So we just completed the square with our x's. We're going to do the same exact thing with our y's. So we have this plus sign in the middle, which is super important that when you're completing the square and you're grouping your two sets of variables, that it's a plus sign in the middle, because if it was a minus, it wouldn't be a circle. So if it was a minus, you may need to factor something else out, or if we would just be dealing with another shape. But it's a plus sign, that means it's a circle. So that plus sign is in the middle for a reason, because in our equation here, it's a plus sign in the middle. So then we have y squared minus 2y, and we're going to put some number here to help us complete the square. So in this spot, we put b over 2 squared. Our b is our middle term, so that would be negative 2 over 2. What's negative 2 over 2? Negative 1. So in here, we put whatever our y is squared and whatever is inside here. So we have y minus 1 squared. So on the right side with our y's, we're adding 1 here. We're pulling this 1 out of nowhere. We're just inserting it into our equation. So if we add 1 on the left side, we have to add 1 on the right side of our equal sign also. So everybody sees how negative 1 squared is positive 1. So I'm adding 1 on this side of our equation, so I have to add 1 to the right side also. So let me write my right side over here. This is equal to, I have a negative 6, a plus 9, and a plus 1. Alright, so I'm going to combine everything together. This is x minus 3 squared plus y minus 1 squared. That's equal to, what is 1 plus 9 minus 6? 4. So this is my standard form of a circle equation. Matches like my formula up top. So now that I have it in the right form, I can clearly identify what my h is, what my k is, and what my r is. So what is my center of the circle? Perfect. 3, 1. It's h and k, but we just have to flip the signs of both of them. So since we have a minus 3 and minus 1, it becomes positive 3 and positive 1. And then what is my radius? Perfect. 4 is my r squared, so if r squared is equal to 4, I would just take the square root. So my radius is 2. So if we look at the picture that was drawn for us, our center is 3, 1, so we go to the right 3, up 1. And then our radius is 2, so we go to the 2, we go 2 in every direction. That's our circle. Okay, so example 3 says find the x and y intercepts of the graph of the circle given by the equation. So anybody remember how we find our x-intercept? Set what equal to 0? Yep, for the x-intercept, you put y equal to 0. So we set y equal to 0 and solve the equation, solve for x. So we have x minus 4 squared plus 0 minus 2 squared is equal to 16. For x minus 4 squared, we have to FOIL it up. So this is like saying x minus 4 times x minus 4. So we multiply our first terms together, we get x squared. Our insides, minus 4x. Our outsides, minus 4x. Our last terms, plus 16. And then 0 minus 2 is negative 2 squared, so it's negative 2 squared. Positive 4, and that's equal to 16. What should we do next? Combine like terms. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 20 is equal to 16. What next? Subtract the 20. If we subtract the 20, we would get x squared minus 8x is equal to negative 4. We see we have an x squared term, an x, and a number, so we know we're going to have to factor. So it would be better if we did what instead of subtracting the 20? Subtract the 16. So we want to move the 16 over because we're going to have to factor anyways. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 4 is equal to 0. Now, what are two factors of 4 that add to negative 8? So our quadratic formula would be negative b, so negative 8, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 8 squared, minus 4 times a times c, so 4 times 4 times 1 over 2a. So we get 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 16 over 2. Eight plus or minus the square root, what's 64 minus 16? 48 over 2. Now let's see if we can simplify the square root of 48. What are two factors of 48?
8 and 6.
And then two factors of 6? 3 and 2. And two factors of 8?
4 and 2.
And then 3, 2, two factors of 4? 2 and 2. We circle groups of 2. So what's going to come to the outside?
4.
4, because 2 times 2. And then a 3 stays on the inside. So square root 48 is the same thing as saying 4 square root 3. So we have 8 plus or minus 4 square root 3 over 2. And can we simplify any more?
It's going to be 4 plus or minus 2 times square root of 3.
Awesome. 4 plus or minus 2 square root 3. So our x-intercept is a point. We said we plugged in 0 for y, so 0 is our coordinate for y. And then we have 4 plus 2 square root 3 and 4 minus 2 square root 3. So these are our two x-intercepts. Now we need to find our y-intercept. Yay. So how do you think we find our y-intercept? Awesome. We set x equal to 0. So we have 0 minus 4 squared plus y minus 2 squared is equal to 16. 0 minus 4 squared would be negative 4 squared, so positive 16. And then we have y minus 2 squared, so we have to FOIL. This is like y minus 2 times y minus 2. So we multiply the first terms, the outsides, FOIL, outsides, so negative 2y, the insides, then the last. And that's equal to 16. What should we do next? Combine like terms. So I have y squared minus 4y plus 20 is equal to 16. What next? Subtract 16. So y squared minus 4y plus 4 is equal to 0. What next? See if we can factor. Do we have two factors of positive 4 that add up to negative 4? negative 2, and negative 2. So we would have y minus 2 times y minus 2 is equal to 0. What next?
You set both of them equal to 0.
Set both of them equal to 0. What do we get for y?
2.
Y is equal to positive 2. And we get y is equal to positive 2. But we really only need one of them. So for our y-intercept, what's our x-coordinate? 0. And our y-coordinate is 2. Sometimes we can have 4 intercepts, we can have 2 x-intercepts, 2 y-intercepts, or we could have only 2 x-intercepts, we could just have 1 x-intercept. So like if we look at this circle here, we never cross the y-axis, so we wouldn't have any y-intercepts, but we do have 2 x-intercepts. For this one that we just did, since we only have 1 y-intercept, but we do have multiplicity here, that means that our graph would touch the y-axis at this point. So it touches and turns. Remember multiplicity? So 0, 2, our graph would just touch and turn. So it would kind of look like this-ish. It's kind of a bad circle, but hopefully you guys can see. And also I wanted to mention, for when we solve for our x-intercept here, if it doesn't factor, you can use the quadratic formula or you can complete the square. You guys want to see it worked out, completing the square? Yeah. All right, let's do it. Okay, so I have x squared minus 8x plus 4 equals 0. So when I complete the square, I want to move my constant to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 4. So I have x squared minus 8x. I'm going to leave the space here because I'm going to put some number in there to help me complete the square. And then just move the 4 over. So in here, I have my b over 2 squared. B is this middle term. So this would be negative 8 over 2 squared. Negative 8 over 2 is negative 4. So in my binomial squared here, I put whatever this is and whatever this is. So the two things that are squared in your equation go in here because this is squared. So inside I put x minus 4. Now, negative 4 squared is what? 16. So I'm adding 16 on my left side of the equation. I just pulled it out of nowhere and put it in here. I'm adding 16. So if I add 16 on the left side, I also have to add 16 on the right side. So then this is equal to, what's negative 4 plus 16? 12. And then I can just solve for x from here. So how can I get rid of that squared in my equation? If I'm solving for x, I want to undo everything. Square root it. So I have x minus 4 is equal to, what happens when you take the square root of both sides? What do you need? Is it just square root of 12?
You get 2 times the square root of 3.
2 times the square root of 3. Perfect, because you simplified this to 4 and 3 and 2 and 2. But don't forget, whenever you take the square root of both sides of the equation, what's one thing you have to remember? plus or minus. And then what's the last step we need to do to solve for x?
You add 4 to the other side.
Add 4. So we have x is equal to 4 plus or minus 2 square root 3. Which is the same thing that we got when we used our quadratic equation. So just two different ways of solving for x.